This is something that is very important. It is about being able to handle the difficulties of life, the trials and tribulations that come at you. And being unwavering means that I am a force and that I am a power in my life and that I'm going to sustain myself and I'm going to keep moving forward.
Make me new.
The first thing to be unwavering is first know who you are. Who am I? What do I like? What am I going to stand on? What is my purpose in life? And once you understand that, then you can be firm on it. And that's when the unwavering piece comes in, that no matter what comes to knock you off of this, me knowing who I am, me knowing my place in this earth, no matter what comes that knocks me off of that, I'm unwavering. I'm willing to stand on what I believe.
Like I tell people, everybody's story is just different, you know? And so just trust the process and take your losses. But it's all about how you see it. Like, some things lead to a different opportunity.
Give me armor. Make me new.
But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I have a strong foundation and I can go anywhere and do anything and make sure that my family's always taken care of.
Save me. I'm drowning. I can't find the top of the water.
Good evening and welcome to our second installment of Voices Amplified. Tonight we're coming to you from Film Stream's Ruth Sokoloff Theaters. I'm Janine Scott, your moderator for today's panel discussion on the film The Unwavering Project by Sydney Shead. The Unwavering Project features the stories of resilience shared through the lens of Black men. In the film, the men talk about their childhood, hardships, successes, and how their experiences have shaped who they are as men, fathers, husbands, professionals, and leaders in our community. Joined by me tonight is the film's writer and producer, Sydney Shead, and two participants in the film. Panelists, if you could, introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your work in the community.
Sure. My name is Shannon. I spend my days at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, working with students, primarily first-generation low-income students and underrepresented students. And I moonlight helping other people become the best version of themselves and while trying to do the same for myself.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. My name is Kuhn. I started a company called Hoop Rank. And primarily we are a training and development company, but we also go as low as, really we started a child daycare center to be able to pretty much instill those same qualities and skills just at a younger age. So fast forward, we are a total wheelhouse of basketball development.
Awesome.
My name is Sydney Shead. My background's mostly in education and human services. So I am the new program manager at Carol's House of Hope, a nonprofit here in Omaha. And I'm an artist and I do some consulting and advocacy within the community around creating thriving families and communities.
Awesome. Well, thank you, panelists. So Sydney, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start with you, okay?
Okay.
So I know that your film is still in the development process, and you started working on it about 4 years ago. I would like to know what inspired you to take on the subject of Black men, highlighting their unwavering resilience and the positive impact that they make in the community.
Absolutely. When I was completing my undergraduate degree, I got a degree in sociology at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And so I finished one of my final projects on Black masculinity. And so I interviewed a handful of my Black male peers, and I wrote a paper based on kind of the state of Black masculinity today. This was around 2012, so we had come through, seeing the first Black president and a lot of those other things that we've seen in our generation about positivity in the Black community and kind of what that looks like. And so fast forward a little bit later, one of the participants in the research, my late friend Tristan Harper, he did an interview with me, and after he passed, about 2 years after the interview, I went back and read the transcript and some of the things that he said, and about how Black men are perceived and how he thought people perceived him. And he mentioned things about being scary, about people thinking he was a monster, thinking he was unintelligent, thinking he was a criminal, a lot of things that were vastly contrast to who he really was. And so that was really powerful, and I wanted to do something about that imagery. And so the project was kind of birthed from that, kind of changing some of those stereotypes and some of those views that we have and questioning where does that come from.
Thank you. That kind of reminds me of the great photographer of the 20th century, Gordon Parks. He was a filmmaker, author who addressed race relations, poverty, and civil rights in American culture from about the early 1940s to the early 2000s. If you could, I'm going to share a quote with you, and then I'd like for you to just tell me how that resonates with you as a filmmaker, as a new filmmaker for the 21st century. I saw that the camera could be a weapon against poverty, against racism, against all sorts of social wrongs. I knew at that point I had to have a camera. Can you tell me maybe about what that quote means to you?
Absolutely. It's very interesting because Gordon Parks is one of his films, The Learning Tree, is one of the earliest films that I remember seeing. My mom showed it to me when I was very young. And it was a coming of age story about a young Black boy growing up in the South. And it just kind of gave you this insight into that experience. It wasn't really sensationalized. I can't say, I want to say it's loosely based on his life. And so it just showed that kind of the power of film to kind of give you an eye into a world that you may never experience. And so I thought that considering the way that media and film portrays certain demographics, especially Black men today, using that same medium to put out a different image would be just as powerful.
That sounds like a huge undertaking. So can you tell me who all is involved in getting this project off the ground?
Absolutely. Well, the thought process behind starting the project was happened in a class that I took in Omaha given by Dr. Martin Williams. And once I started developing the project and kind of just thinking about contributions that I wanted to make in my life, the project was kind of birthed at that point. And I thought, well, it'd be really cool to talk about this in a book or something, but I'm not really a writer and I don't got time for that. So I thought it'd be a cool film. You know, I love documentaries. I watched Eyes on the Prize when I was young. It was on VHS. I was probably under the age of 8, and I've always seen the power of documentary films. Another film I really enjoyed, I guess coming up in my adolescence, was Bastards of the Party, and it talked about kind of the death of the Black Panther Party and how the gang movement of the Crips and Bloods kind of was birthed out of that. And just the power in getting that real information and insight. And so when I thought about doing film, I talked to a friend of mine, Andre McGraw. He's a local creative here in town as well. And he was like, yeah, I can help you out. And he hooked me up with a crew of folks. We used a local film studio here in Omaha, and I talked to some friends of mine. They came out and we showed up, and Andre had some folks in there ready to go. And so we filmed it. I met my friend Kristen Zara, And so along the way, folks have just kind of showed up and contributed their gifts to this project, believing in the story and wanting to hone in on their craft. So Jasper Sweet, Timothy Christian, Tessa Wedberg, folks like that in the creative community that have given their time and gifts and shared their expertise with me so that we could continue working on this with no budget. So that's what's been going on.
Well, it sounds like you have an amazing support system, for sure.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what topics your series covers?
Absolutely. I wanted to highlight some of those stereotypes that we see most often: criminal, thug, deadbeat dad, uneducated. And so I wanted to basically shatter those. So we're talking about fatherhood in the face of not being a father, whether that's single fatherhood, being married and being a father, not having a father and becoming a father and husband, being a first generation college student, what happens after your dreams that you've lived for up to a certain point in life don't come to pass. How do we get past that point? Growing up with drug addicted parents, growing up in the projects, growing up, whether it's not having access to certain things, whether that's because of oppression from the outside or just being born into an adverse situation. We're kind of talking about all of those things, the power of relationships. These guys talk about their family members, their wives, their mentors, and folks that have showed up along the way to help them and walking into unknown situations to try to start something new and walking into the unknown and how that, kind of can spark something in someone's life. So we're just talking about all that kind of stuff and the obstacles along the way. So
Right. What do you want the community to take away from seeing this project?
Besides the fact that people can know that there's Black people in Omaha and in Nebraska, I would just hope that people can find a piece of themselves in this story, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're Black, whether you are American, whether you're from Nebraska, but just finding that commonality of, the capacity we all have as humans to be resilient.
Right.
There are so many obstacles and things that come up, and being here in America, it's kind of like a melting pot. Different people come here for different reasons and go through different things, but at the end of the day, we want to be our best selves, I think. We want to see our families succeed. We want to see our loved ones succeed. And so if you can find just a piece of you in any of these stories, in any of these parts, and see that maybe, there is something else on the other side is what I would hope people could gain.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So in the project, you interview Kristopher Kuhn, and how he shares about how he grew up with both parents. Chris is here with us today, and you talk about how you participated in sports, received a basketball scholarship, played professional ball, and then all of a sudden it ends due to an injury. So here's a sneak peek of a video clip where Chris talks about that tough period in his life, where he had to transition from the basketball court to corporate America.
What ended my career was an injury. I tore my Achilles, and I had the surgery and whatnot. And after that, I came back maybe 60, 70% of what I was, and it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to make money playing basketball. And the reality of that was that now I had to get a job. And it's a difficult mindset. It's a difficult transition. Like I said, when I made my resume, I just really had nothing to put on there to be competitive with some of the other candidates. And so I went to this company and this company, filling out applications, and I got tired of hearing no, And luckily enough, I had people in my life to kind of make me see, because like I said, for me, all I saw myself was a basketball player. For the last 4 years, I don't really have much professional experience. I played basketball, I have my college degree. America says, go to school, get your college degree, and then we'll give you a job. It didn't happen for me.
Chris, In the clip, you talk about basketball, and I'm sure there are a lot of future wannabe professional basketball players out there tuning in today. Can you tell us why you felt like basketball was your only option?
Sure. As a kid, I can tell you, as far as black role models, males, there just weren't a lot. There weren't, in terms of options on what I could be, there weren't a lot of, everyone says you can be anything you want to be, but there weren't a lot of actual visual examples of these in my community. And to no one's fault, I understand, we're really not that far out of, my father went through, some types of civils, we're not too far out of the BS.
Right.
So, it's understood why, we're just coming into this age, but there just weren't a lot of examples outside of, Dr. Huxtable and Uncle Phil, and, it just wasn't a lot, so really the only scope of success that I saw out of my window in terms of how to make my million and get this American dream and all these things that they said that we could have was either the guy riding down the street in the nice car,
right,
or when I turn on the TV, somebody throwing a football or bouncing a ball. And so as a kid, this was my only scope of success, and it had to be one of those two.
And you were definitely one of the fortunate ones, because about 2% of high school or college student athletes actually make it, into the league. So that's commendable. You also talk about how you had mentors, and you talk about the support that you had. How does that contrast to the lives of some of your peers?
Yeah, I had a father in my life. I had uncles. I had a lot of hands on me. So they knew what was right. They knew what was right. Not necessarily the example of what right was, but they knew what was right. So they steered me in the direction of what they felt right was, and it just so happened to coincide with my dream. They kept me on that straight path. Anytime Chris wanted to run the streets or get out of pocket or anything like that, I had that check system of, literally to come in and, hey, listen, straighten up. So, as a kid, that's, especially as a young black male, I feel like, that invaluable. It's so important.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So the project is called the Unwavering Project, right? So can you tell me about an obstacle that makes you unwavering that you may have experienced in your life?
For sure. I talk about it all the time. Is my transition from from corporate America to, my transition from basketball to corporate America was definitely the most difficult time of my life. And yeah, for sure, it was literally shedding skin. It was me becoming a different person, a person that I haven't been before. Before, my whole entire life, I was Chris the basketball player, Chris the athlete, and you're treated as such. So doors open and people, you're treated as this person. Well, once that ball stops bouncing, you're not that person. And so people are going to treat you differently. And if you don't actually start, acknowledging, listen, I'm not that person anymore.
Right.
I got to find a new thing to be a star. I got to find a new platform to be my own star. If you can't find a way to reinvent yourself, you just kind of get lost in that shuffle. And I forgive any of the military vets who serve for our country, but the closest thing I know to PTSD would be that transition between basketball and going into corporate, going into real life, we'll say.
Like the lights stop, the crowd stops, and you're like a normal person, a typical everyday person. That's,
Who am
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you really have to reinvent yourself.
Right. So our second panelist, Shannon, does an excellent job of capturing the varied perspectives of black men. When you talk about being raised by your mom and your grandmother, you're a first-generation college student, and you talk a little bit about battling depression in college. We're going to watch a short clip about this real quick.
The obstacle that I had in college, one semester, I was very, 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 very depressed. I got to the point to where not only did I have a 0.0 GPA, it was to the point to where I wasn't even leaving my dorm room, and at some points I wasn't eating, and I got to this place because there are expectations that I felt that other people put on me, and maybe that was just my perception of myself, that I should be this person that I believe that everybody wants me to be, and I felt like I couldn't be that person for them, and I felt almost like I was a slave to their perception of me, when this was all in my mind.
And I want to thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing your story with us. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about your experience with anxiety and with depression. And statistically, in our culture, the stigma and sometimes the lack of access prevents us from seeking that type of help and from even just sharing our story. From your perspective, what are some of those stigmas and how have you moved beyond that?
Yeah, as a black man, or even as, black culture, physical health, going to the doctor is something that we run away from as a culture and a community. Sometimes we feel like the hospital may do more damage than good, and not and physically, not just financially.
Right.
And then a lot of times we feel like we don't know where the money's going to come from, or what that copay looks like, or we may not have insurance, and we may not know what those resources are in the community, so we may not even go that route. But I also would say, as a black man, just the fear of being vulnerable. So there's a defense mechanism that is there, that you have to be a tough person.
Right.
You have to get through this time and this moment on your own and by yourself. And sometimes you feel like you can.
Right.
And then you're stuck in that space for so long when you in your head you feel like you can get out of that, but then you're still there. And during that time in college, when I was battling both depression and anxiety, depression being, unable to let go of guilt from the past, and anxiety of worrying about success in the future, I battled a lot of that, but it wasn't me. I'll tell you that straight up. It wasn't me. It was people close to me, my friends, my mentors, even therapy, people that saw that happening to Shannon Teamer, the person that everybody at the time loves, or the person who's the face of everything, that smiles all the time. And so it took people that were really close to me to pull me in that direction, when I couldn't pull myself out of it. Right. So it was really other people at the beginning.
Community.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And there are so many black men specifically, that battle that type of depression, and they try to find that balance, and the history that we have with the medical system and the distrust that we have from when you think about the Tuskegee experiment,
Absolutely.
to now the disproportionate socioeconomic status. I mean, all of
Black
those
women
things.
dying in childbirth.
Exactly, the stats of black women dying in childbirth. It's staggering, and the stigma is real. And I thank you for speaking, because we really have to break that. We have to break that stigma in our community, because there are a lot of little black boys who look like you, who walk around with that same type of anxiousness on wanting to be successful, on wanting to want to become rich so they can buy their mom the house and the car and to save their family. So I think we all relate to that, and it's tough. It's a tough road, and I definitely thank you. And you talk about the mentors that you've had, and how was that growing up without a father, without having someone in the house that looked like you? How did that impact your life?
Yeah, to be honest, when we were raised really well. I mean, you don't know you don't have something when you feel like you got everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll briefly talk about when I was 10 years old. I'm 34 right now. When I was 10 years old, I remember my biological father coming to the front door of my grandmother's house when we were staying there, and I kind of looked him up and down like, I don't know who you are. I don't remember you. And we had a brief conversation, and he asked if I wanted, some clothes, and I was 10. I wanted a Nintendo 64 at the time. So, and I didn't think anything of it. I was a kid, and so my brother and I we would just play video games. That was it then. Fast forward to today, about 4 years ago, I got a phone call. He currently lives in Arkansas and has early onset dementia.
Wow.
And he's married now. And we had a conversation, about a less than 10-minute conversation. And from that point, after that conversation, I had forgiven him. And now I'm a father and a husband. So, having that example, even though it wasn't there growing up, I have many good friends that are fathers, many male mentors that are fathers that I can go to and talk to. And it just gives me a chance to just be a great dad, or as best as I possibly can. That's kind of the impact.
So from 10 through, you said 4 years ago, you're 40, you're 30, you're 34 now, 20 years.
20 years.
You hadn't gone without talking to your father.
Correct. Yeah.
What happened in that phone conversation to make you forgive him for that?
Right.
For
That's
that
what I
action?
want to know.
Seriously.
I'm serious.
I didn't forgive him in the conversation. The conversation was, it was hurtful. I'll say that. Number one, he called me son, which was interesting. And again, I've forgiven my father. This is not a time
no. We're not bashing him now. No, not at all.
But in that short conversation, his wife has spoken to me, and he had spoken to me, and he mentioned for my mother, he requested that I ask my mom to stop asking him for back child support. So after 20 years, that being a part of the conversation, and the only real significant piece of the conversation was very tough for me to swallow. And my brother, when I told my brother and my mom, they were ready to go to war.
That's right, mount up.
And I'm more of a diplomat, but so yeah, it was that's what happened in the conversation. And later on, I had forgiven him. Yeah.
I mean, to move on, sometimes you have to forgive even if they don't apologize, right? I mean, for your own for your own sake.
That's dope, man. That says a lot about you, man.
Exactly.
That's dope.
It says a lot about your character, a whole lot about your character. So I'm gonna ask you the same question that I asked Chris. And you've talked about some significant things and some significant challenges that you've had to overcome, which makes you unwavering. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or?
Yeah, I would say you're gonna go through turbulence and obstacles, and we've all failed and failed tremendously, failed forward. But I always quote, and Sydney knows this, Napoleon Hill: temporary defeat is not permanent failure. And just continue.
That's really neat, because the class that I mentioned earlier was, a lot of it covered Napoleon Hill's work, so that's really neat how it came full circle. But I wanted to add that just hearing you guys talking about forgiveness and your emotions in those transitional points, like how pivotal that is for our culture to get those emotions in check, to see if I need to work through this so I can move forward to become my best self, because we even see a lot, even now, with the tumult that our country's been under this year. If we're not emotional, if we're not getting our emotions in check, we can't move forward in thinking logically about who am I, what do I want to do, what's going to be best for my family. And so I love how you guys were able to kind of share that, especially from a male perspective of, yeah, I didn't know who I was at this point, or I was fearful or anxious, and understanding that this has to be addressed before I can continue to grow.
Right.
If there's one thing I wanted to share, just to
Yeah,
leave
go ahead.
everybody
No.
with, is I know the Unwavering Project is for me, this has been so impactful, just in my own life, in my own journey, and just trying to understand who I am, and within that, I don't want anyone to misconstrue unwavering as meaning you can't change.
Right.
I was just sitting here looking at the interviews and so on and so forth over the last 3 years, and the progression of even my hair, So, you know, it just shows, you know, we have the ability to change the way that you even look.
Exactly.
You can change your appearance. You
Yeah.
can change the way you think. You can change the way you feel. Whoever you don't want to be, or whoever you want to be,
Right.
you have that ability to change that. And so I just understanding that, I want to just empower everybody to just, whatever you feel like you've been through, you don't have to, you don't got to keep that, you don't got to carry that on.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's always, you can always change.
Right. And that's unfortunately, that's a stereotype that a lot of people see in film and in media today. So, Sydney, why was film the best medium for you to use to convey this story?
Sure. I know it's a powerful story that needed to be told, and I'm not really a writer. I love books, I love photos, I love visual things, and I wanted it to be impactful. I wanted a lot of different people to have access to it. So in this day and age, I knew the power that film had played in my own life, and how media and whether it's mainstream media or entertainment media, how impactful that is, music to us as people. And so with the internet and all of the tools and things that we have, I was like, well, this could be awesome and impactful. If it's a film, people can access it in different ways, and that story can be heard around the world.
Right.
So why not?
Essentially shattering the stereotypes.
Shattering, yes,
Right.
breaking barriers and all of that.
Yeah. No, exactly. You both do a lot of work in the community, and I'd like to offer you an opportunity to just kind of share what it is that you're doing in the community and how you are continually promoting that positive image of the black man in our community. Either.
I would say I appreciate the head nod, but I don't think I'm promoting anything. This is who I am, 110%, and I make that a point to stay connected and stay visible in my community. So, like, you know, the old neighborhoods of the friends and, you know, my old stomping grounds. I make sure I'm visible in that neighborhood, so that, you know, those kids and that youth can see something different between the person they see on TV who they have no connection with,
Right.
and the other person who may be riding down the street in a nice car who may not be doing something who we all shouldn't be doing. So I make sure I stay visible, so when they see this next car, this isn't the drug dealer, this isn't the athlete. You know what, I could be a businessman, I could be an owner, I could be a, you know,
Right.
that part is just important to stay inspirational.
Right.
Sure.
100.
Amen. I mean, that's just the truth. Having conversations, again, similar to what Chris was saying, is having conversations with individuals who you grew up with and their kids, and the folks that grew up across the street from me, and I found out that they were my cousins. Now they got kids, and you know, I get a chance to talk to them and mentor them, and just a couple of organizations that I'm involved with. The 100 Black Men. I'm trying to get my mentee to get in with Chris. So and then I'm affiliated with Amplify, Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and also Prince Hall Lodge of Freemasonry as well. So just trying to stay connected to my community, but more importantly, just having those real conversations with people impact lives, and doesn't have to be for social media or for the camera. It's just support.
So we know that these type of stories aren't always money makers, right? They're not like always blockbuster films, and it's typically the stereotypical roles that we tend to play, unfortunately. And I think the pendulum is starting to swing in the other direction by having more blacks behind the camera and directing and producing like yourself. Can you talk to me about what some of the challenges are being in Omaha, Nebraska, as a Black woman, as a new filmmaker?
Absolutely. Well, we know that we're not on any of the coasts, so we don't have access to all of the film schools and, you know, some of the opportunities that might come from being in New York or LA. But just as stepping into the film world in itself, it's a very expensive avenue, if that's an appropriate word. So having the equipment and the lights and the stands and all the mics, my God, we had to change shoots because we forgot to rent a lav mic, and it's like lav, whatever the word is. And so it's like, it's learning French, you know, so I have this idea, and it's like, who are the people? Can I pay them? How much does it cost? Well, how do I do a film budget? Well, a film budget in Omaha is different than a film budget in New York. It's different in LA, and now it's different with COVID. And do you have insurance? And so it's like learning all of these things, finding the right people that can help you do that and stick with your vision, because I have people coming in that I would love your insight. I need your gift, but it's my story. And how do I manage that? And ask you to help me and not be able to pay you what we both know you deserve. So that's challenging. The subject matter of the story has been challenging as a woman, just wanting to navigate telling a story from a male perspective, being unmarried, these guys being married, making sure their wives are okay with it and not getting in the way. Is it okay that I'm telling this story as a woman? And I've reconciled that it is. But then also being a woman, a Black woman in film, there's not a lot of us. There's a few of us coming out now that we're seeing more of. But even just as a woman in the film industry, it can be difficult. I read an article a few years ago about an actress that was trying to transition into film. She lived in LA, she was an actor, she had money, she knew the right people. It still took her 5 years to do her film. Wow. So it can still be challenging just in itself. And then I'm a professional during the day. I have a daughter that I've raised for 7 years on my own. And so taking care of home and then figuring out this new thing, how do you balance that? It's all been challenging, all of that in itself. So when things begin to happen, you find something you believe in, and you just kind of push through. I mean, the fact that it's called the Unwavering Project has been one of the biggest reasons why I can't even quit doing it when I've wanted to, because it's like, that's counterproductive to what you're trying to do here. So it's just, it's been fantastic, but it's just kind of magical how it's happened and encouraged me to push through, learning to, I don't know how to write grants, but I got a fellowship with the Nebraska Arts Council this year.
That's
so
awesome.
That fellowship year is coming to an end, but meeting the folks with the Nebraska Arts Council and just putting myself out there in a space that I've never been in, that was challenging, but it has reaped, wonderful things. So So yeah, there's challenges in all those arenas, whether it's from budgeting or if this is my story to tell, or does anybody want to hear this story? It all kind of culminates into, what the Unwavering Project is, but,
Right. Well, we want to hear your story. We want to hear their stories. How do you all feel about Sydney's project? You guys are participating in it, and how do you feel as Sydney, as a Black woman, telling your story as a Black male? Does it even matter?
Sydney and I grew up together pretty much through Upward Bound in Central High School. I trust Sydney 110% to tell this story, and I just believe in her vision, and she's genuine and authentic, and she just allows for the freedom for us to express ourselves.
Yeah. No, I couldn't have said it better. It's so crazy just listening to her speak. You gave me a crazy perspective that I didn't even consider. My, telling the story from a woman, and obviously with married men involved, and was it just and that's so. It's dope that you were able to silence those doubts, because man,
Right.
this is dope what you're doing. So I knew Tristan personally. Tristan was my guy. We same school, everything like that, and just to hear how he impacted her. Fast forward to make this whole thing come to fruition is absolutely amazing, and I couldn't agree more with just the stereotypes and the groundbreaking. These examples of these just incredible men who are not what they say that we are. And it's just dope of it to be shown. I appreciate you, Sid.
Yeah, so you can ask them. I tracked down his wife. Well, I didn't have to track him down. I know them, but I was like, I need your husband to help me with this. So I sent emails to Ashley and Jay first, and any other men that I asked to be on the film. I was like, let me talk to your wife.
Take him. I already know.
Yeah.
So, what opportunities do you see for Omaha? I mean, even beyond just the film, what opportunities do you see in our city?
I think Omaha is an amazing, special place. So it's just like, it's really unlimited of the impact that we could make. I mean, even Chris shares about his transition into the corporate world, which was at Union Pacific. Well, Union Pacific's the reason why I live here. My dad retired from there in 2002. So just the fact that how I ended up in Omaha, Gary ended up in Omaha through the Upward Bound program. He was the RA for me and Shannon. We were at Creighton. And so, I don't know. It's just a magical thing about Omaha, and even the creative community here, and how I've been able to meet people to help with this project. And so there's just something special about being here. There's been really difficult things that we've gone through as a city, especially this year. However, the resilience and just what has risen out of that, even from the people here, it's just a really good testament to it's just a special place here. I don't know how many more ways I could say that. So I think the project will show what Omaha really is and what has come out of it by taking advantage of those opportunities. We're not standing on the corner eating a banana. Ellie was not filmed here. It was filmed in New York.
Right,
and so, I'm just excited about that. We saw Out of Omaha last year. That made a great impact in the film world and on the city, and we want to keep building from that.
Exactly.
Some great stuff coming out from here, and so yeah.
What opportunities do you see, Shannon?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't even know if I can say any more than that. I will say, I'll talk about generations, and the word that Sydney said that speaks to me is building. It's time to continue building, and if we can build what we would like to see in the next 25 years, that's one generation change. And imagine what our children's children will see because of our children, by the way of us changing through this next 25 years. This one generation can change a lot in this city. And also, use the symbolism of the letter O as a drop in the ocean, as a raindrop in the ocean.
Come through, doctor. Yes.
One day.
That ripple, huh?
Yeah, that ripple effect. So why
yes.
wouldn't the O be the center of
Ooh.
that? So,
That was deep.
That was fantastic. You can't make that up. That's
Right.
good.
Yeah, Chris, what else? Chris is like, I can't go now.
Nah, hey, listen, I love listening to this man speak, for sure. I would agree, though. You know, something special brewing here in Omaha. And it's not even just brewing, it's been here.
Yeah.
You know, from the Warren Buffetts to the now Terrence Crawfords, and you could sprinkle in the Gabrielle Unions and it's a ton of successful. I read something a while ago. Don't fact check me on this, but I read it. It was Omaha has produced the largest number of millionaires per capita than any other city, and so it just tells you definitely something is in the air in Omaha for sure. I think what Omaha has struggled with traditionally was being able to retain these talents. And as we're seeing the city be able to develop, as we're seeing the Sydney Sheads and the Shannon teamers and all these amazing individuals be able to stay here and actually share their talents, I see Omaha growing and being the next New York, the next Atlanta. And so that's you feel it. It's here. I'm excited for my city and what's on the horizon.
Yeah, we certainly have the talent. I would agree with you 100%. So what's next, Sydney? What's next with this project?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned, the fellowship with Nebraska Arts Council is coming to a close, so I'm looking at just other forms of creating momentum and finances for the film. Excuse me. So I'm looking at some grants and some different applications. I'm also looking at collaborating with another artistic space here in Omaha. There's some great artists here that are really interested in the project, and so we're developing some things that I'm not going to speak on just yet, but we're working on different ways to just continue to build on the project, get some exposure on these stories, and see where it goes. Honestly, I wanted to take this on the road, kind of go hood to hood and talk about what Black men are doing all over this country. And so I would love to continue to do that. Of course, 2020 threw everybody for a loop, so we don't know, but we have so much good here. And so we've just been continuing to build on that. So we'll be fundraising, we'll be grant writing, and just continuing to build, because we want to have more conversations and just opportunities to use this as a tool within the community. So we're just going to continue on that track.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
Covered it all up there.
We covered it all?
Covered it all.
Well, I want to say thank you to each of you for allowing us to share your stories with our audiences, and for being very candid and being very real with your experiences, and thank you for allowing us to help celebrate your successes that you all have had. That concludes our virtual panel discussion for tonight. Thank you, Sydney, Chris, and Shannon again. Yes, we can clap.
we got an audience.
It's just us in here, so we'll just clap. But thank you for your time for the evening. We'd like to give a special thank you to Angie Balserini.
Angie Balserini.
Yeah, Angie Balserini. All right, I just want to make sure I say it right. And to Film Streams, of course, for putting this on, or for allowing us to use their space, I should say. And just thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being real. This was a great discussion, and I really appreciate you all sharing your stories with us. So for more updates on Voices Amplified, we have our next series will be called Worth 1,000 Words, the photography of Rudy Smith, and that will be on December 13th. Thank you again, and have a great night.